Hey everybody, Omar here, the Knife Shark Guy, and I am back with another fun-filled video for you. And I just wanted to welcome you guys back to my channel. We're going to be doing a little discussion today. I kind of like to call this Sharp Sculptures Corner, where I will take a knife maker and I'll just highlight his work, talk about him a little bit so you can get an idea of who he is and the kind of work you can expect from him. Des Horn is the topic today. And this gentleman is the perfect person to start off this, I just want to call it this series that I might wind up doing on my channel. He is considered the father of South African knife making. I don't think Des Horn considers himself that, but he has been known by his peers as the leader of the South African knife movement, if you will. In front of you, you see three knives made by Des Horn. And what makes these knives so interesting is that he has two categories of knives that he makes. There are these, which I kind of consider these like his regular knives. They're just, knives that he makes, and they have become very, very popular with the masses here in the United States. Anyone that's ever heard of Des Horn, if you guys have heard of the Spyderco Des Horn, which is a small Spyderco knife made from cocobolo wood. That knife is now discontinued by Spyderco. I don't believe it's no longer running anymore. But that is the only knife that Des Horn has collaborated with Spyderco. And it was pretty popular in its day. However, the three knives that you see here are actually examples of his actual custom knives. This knife here is called the Mvubu, and this one runs on washers only. And it's probably his most popular model. The knife does not run on ball bearings. It only runs on washers. And people have difficulty believing that, but this is pretty much the kind of skill that we're talking about when we talk about a very, very incredibly skilled knife maker who can make simple washer knife have action that is just that phenomenal. I just wanted to show this to you. So I've done this on my video before, but as you can see, it does drop shut. But if you want to know what is it like to see this knife on ball bearings, this is the only one he's ever made that I know of in the world. This is my custom Mvubu made for me by Des Horn. I do not believe there's another ball bearing Mvubu knife out there. This one runs on ceramic silicone nitrate ball bearings. And this knife doesn't just fall shut, it will fall shut on gravity alone. See that? I mean, ridiculous. I don't do anything to this knife other than just tip it over and put it at a 90-degree angle. Versus this one, which acts more like a ball bearing knife, but it's just washers. And then, of course, over here we have the Slim Vubu, which is a slimmed down version of the knife. Also very smooth, also runs only on washers. So these three are probably the most requested knives to be made and ordered by Des Horn's customers. And yet, what makes it so interesting, while these are the most popular models by Des Horn, as far as I understand it, you have to understand Des Horn is an art knife maker. He is a knife maker who wants to be challenged as a knife maker. He enjoys the art of knife making. He enjoys the invention of the mechanics of knife making. Even simple things as, say, the steel that a knife is garnered with. In this case, we're looking at Nitrobe 77. This is a very, very rare special steel, and Deshorn is credited with pretty much, I don't want to say the inventor. I don't know what word I'm looking for to describe what I'm trying to say, but basically, he's the instigator for this steel, I guess. He has turned putting this steel on a knife into artwork itself. You have to understand, this steel, Nitrobe 77, it goes through a rigorous heat treatment process by Deshorn personally, and then the steel is quenched in liquid nitrogen 4 times to give it strength. Only the very skilled knife maker will even work with that steel. Deshorn is one of them. Andre Thorburn works with it. Just only the most experienced knife makers will work with that steel. As far as I know, Deshorn is the first. I could be wrong about that, but I'm going to say at least he's one of the first ones to put this particular steel and to discover that this particular steel is a madman. I mean, this steel here will, I don't have paper. This steel here will cut through paper like absolute crazy. See if I can find something here. Yeah, here we go. So, I mean, the way the steel has been treated, I mean, it is just razor sharp. I mean, this steel would kick M390 butt, as far as I'm concerned. And I have used this knife quite often to cut up boxes. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So, I'm going to bring out 3 other knives, okay? So, these are the knives that Deshorn makes that are very popular with the masses here in the United States. But these are not actually the Deshorn knives that would be considered an example of his capabilities as a knife maker. I'm going to bring out 3 other knives now so you can see what I'm talking about. And these knives that I'm talking about, most people probably wouldn't even order them unless they've had the Mbubu and the Slim Bubu models. So what you see in front of you are 3 knives that are probably mid-examples of his work. This isn't even the best of the best that the man can do. He does more than this. But these knives are just absolute art genius, as far as I'm concerned. So let's go ahead and take a look at these knives, find out what's so unique about them. And I'm going to do actual full unboxings of these 2 knives here in the very near future. I just wanted you guys to see the capabilities of Deshorn and what this man does. So, a lot of the things that Deshorn does is work with materials that may not be I guess, understood by all of us who are, you know, into collecting, say, like production knives. Because you'll never find materials like this on production knives. And part of the genius of Deshorn is he has the ability to take synthetic materials and organic materials and put them on a knife in such a way that you can't even tell. I mean, he has put shark teeth on knives and you wouldn't even know it. Those organic material type knives, those are considered a staple in South Africa. Here in the United States, however, it seems a little foreign. A lot of us may not want to have shark teeth and warthog ivory and things like that on our knives. It's just, we're just not there yet. However, Deshorn understands that aspect of people here living, you know, that live here in the United States that just want to really nice folder, something a little fancy, but because we're not as ingrained in the culture as they are in South Africa, we kind of have to slowly be introduced to those organic materials. Such is the case here in Point. I don't even own any of the knives with organic material on them. The knives here that you see are made from, synthetic materials, I guess, or not synthetic, but not really organic material. So let me just go over these real quick. And you'll see his use of materials on the knife. So this one is the Deshorn Slim Flip knife. This knife runs on ceramic ball bearings. And it runs on IKBS ball bearing system. Very, very smooth. So smooth it falls back. The handle, we have Damascus bolsters over here. And then we've got this material called C-Tech. Now, C-Tech is a combination of materials. It's a combination of resin and aluminum, sort of all put together. And if you look at it closely, you might even mistake it for carbon fiber. But what it does, it adds extra depth aesthetically to the knife. If you take a look at this for a quick second, we can see that it's not really black. It's more of a dark coffee colored flavor to it. And these on the back spacer, that's also all aluminum. That is handcrafted by Deshorn. This is like not hundreds, but hours and hours of man work done by hand by Deshorn, meticulously crafted into a tool. That takes a long time to do that. It takes a long time just to even think of the materials to put on the knife. And then, of course, to finish it off, he's got these beautiful custom screws that he put on there. I call these Liberace screws. I don't know if any of you guys are old enough to remember who Liberace is. If you don't know who Liberace is, you can ask your parents. But Lee Liberace was a concert pianist during the 1960s and all the way up to the 1980s. And, it's very, very fancy looking screws on these. His use of Damascus and C-Tech. I mean, just understanding that Damascus and C-Tech would work together on a knife, that takes skill. Really absolutely fantastic. This knife here, a couple of other things we want to talk about on here. I'm going to use this knife to talk about it. So, not only is Deshorn a brilliant knife maker as far as trying to figure out what materials to put on a knife, he's also a brilliant knife maker as far as knife mechanisms and how to integrate that onto a knife. How to figure out another way to do something on a knife. And a perfect example is this, what they call a ball release. Let me explain this. So, everybody knows, anyone that's into knife collecting understands that a liner lock operates in such a way where you take your thumb, push it over, and then you can close the knife. Then when you open the knife locks in place. The ball release is not really a necessity as much as it is an art mechanism. I'm going to use that word. It's considered an art mechanism because it's not really necessary, but it is genius and it is considered art in my opinion. It's a sharp sculpture type of thing. So, the ball release was an invention by Deshorn. I'm going to say it's an invention. I really don't know if it's an invention of his, but he is the one that is credited with the ball release. Since then, production knife makers have put this concept on their knives. Not exactly the same way, but in almost kind of the same way that Deshorn presents it to us here. So let me show you how this works. So as you can see on a liner lock, you push your finger out of the way of the liner and then close the knife. Here, he's added this button here. So let's bring it up close so you guys can see. We take the ball here and we simply press it, right? And then we close the knife. Now, that's a lot simpler. I mean, the mechanic is very, very simple, but to create it is difficult. Let's take a look and see what I'm talking about here. First of all, take a look at the underside of that knife there. You can see that it is angled. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's kind of angled, kind of cut this way on the knife, so that when you press on the ball, okay, it leaves just enough room for the knife to close, and then you let go of the ball. The reason that is difficult is because, guys, that's done by hand. He actually cuts it at that angle by hand. He puts this bar locking mechanism up across here. He does that by hand. That takes hours and hours of work to do that. Can you imagine making even 5 or 6, or let's say even 3 of these knives in a day? They all have to be perfect in order to operate correctly. And that is the art of Des Horn. He takes the time to craft things by hand so that you will get every bit of a grand experience when you open and close and use his knife for day-to-day activity, for day-to-day use as a tool. But he also makes it in such a way so that he's hoping that you will appreciate all of the man-hours that went into such a piece like this. I mean, if you take a look at this, this is a one-of-a-kind handmade piece. The name of this knife is called the Shinkansen front flipper. And this is basically an art sculpture, believe it or not. He was inspired when he went to Japan, and he saw the bullet trains there in Japan. And if you look at this knife, it looks like a bullet train with the Wharncliffe style blade and the swoop of the Wharncliffe style blade, the swoop of the top of this knife here. It looks like, if you go to your if you go to Google and you Google Shinkansen bullet train, you'll take a look and see where he got the inspiration for this knife. It's just absolutely genius, absolutely spectacular. Des Horn, you can tell Des Horn's art knives from his regular knives. I wanted to bring this up also. It's because Des Horn's regular knives, this one being an exception, Des Horn's regular art knives do not come with a pocket clip on either one of them, as you can see. And when he makes his regular knives, he uses the same exact pocket clip for just about every knife that he makes. He does not like pocket clips. And the reason he does not like pocket clips is because Des Horn is an art knife maker. He believes that the pocket clip kind of, I guess, takes away from the art aspect of the knife, because a knife can still be a knife, and yet he also understands that it can be seen as an artwork as well. So the pocket clip is just something that he puts on for his customers who want a pocket clip on their knives. But I have to say, in hindsight, that this knife simply happened because, I don't know, I guess I'm kind of like blabbering on here, but these knives came later, okay? As far as I understand it, these knives came later in Des Horn's career to sort of fill a need for people who wanted a really nice EDC knife. He compromised in a way where you would look at these and still see them as art. But if you really wanted one of Des Horn's real art knives, you'd probably want to go for something like this. Keep in mind, knives like this, these were considered Des Horn's staple before the entire EDC craze came in, as far as I understand it. Which is probably why he's not crazy about making knives like this, because they're not really much of a challenge for him. He understands that there's a need for these knives. He understands that people want EDC knives. So it's almost as if though he's using these two knives, or actually knives like these, the Mbubu, the Slim Bubu, even the regular Slim Flip because he does make a regular non-custom looking slim flip knife. He probably uses these knives more as like a calling card, because if you go to his website, Desshorn Knives, you're not going to see any of these knives on his website. I have not seen an Mbubu or a Slim Bubu on his website whatsoever. What I see are knives like what you see here, which are considered his art knives. The Shinkansen front flipper, his small and large ball release. These are the knives you will see on his website. And even these are not as extreme as some of the ones you will see when you go to his website. And yet, other knife makers have followed suit through Desshorn. They're doing things I've noticed, like, for example, Andre Thorburn, who is also an art knife maker. But Andre Thorburn has figured out a way to meld an art knife and an EDC into one. Let me just show you a quick example of what I'm talking about. And again, this is just my opinion as far as knives are concerned. This isn't by any way to be considered fact. This is just my opinion and what I think. But if you look at this knife has art on it, right? But it's not as extreme looking as, say, a Desshorn knife. For example, Andre Thorburn will put a pocket clip, and not the same pocket clip on his knives. He will put styrofoam there. He will put a customized pocket clip on it, because he has gone into a way of introducing art into knives in a way that people here in the United States will accept it. Which is why Andre Thorburn's knives sell. I mean, they just sell like hotcakes, and there is really nothing wrong with that. But I can't help but believe that this type of knife making, where you meld an art knife and a regular knife together in one, probably never would have even came across without Desshorn, which is why he is so celebrated by his peers. He basically, him along with like Owen Wood, those two guys single-handedly brought the world of I guess, custom knives into the forefront here in the United States. And that's why Desshorn is so celebrated as a knife maker. He has the ability to appeal to the masses with knives like the Mbubu and the Slim Bubu, and have people still see them as art, even though knives like this are really just considered Desshorn's calling card. Because what he's hoping is that after you buy one of these, or one of these, maybe the next step is for you to maybe pick up and get one of these, or one of these, or one of these. It's sort of a marketing tool, and there's nothing wrong with that. And eventually, and to be honest with you, it works, because I did it. I mean, I bought this knife first, and then I went slowly and gradually more into Desshorn's art knives. You know, and he makes his knives in a way that they could still be appealing to you as a knife maker. But there's no way you would ever jump into something like this unless you can be introduced to something like this first. So, this is my video on Desshorn and why he's so important. Being able to meld a regular knife with an art knife together as one, and have you still see it as an EDC. He has pretty much walked that line, and has been very, very successful at it for many, many years. And again, you know, like I say, if it wasn't for Desshorn, maybe we wouldn't have an Andre Thorburn. who's able to take Deshorn's concept of an art knife, bringing the art into the regular world of knives. I mean, Andre Thorburn is going to be credited with that, but I don't think Andre Thorburn can say he's solely responsible without the work of this man, Deshorn, at least in my opinion. Everybody that makes knives in South Africa, they all exist for a particular reason. Deshorn is the leader, as far as I can see. However, I mean, like I said, Andre Thorburn has been able to meld the two together, where you take a regular knife and an art knife and put it all together into one package. Whereas Deshorn is still separating it. But he's slowly coming into it. And he doesn't necessarily need to create a version of, you know, where you take an art knife, where you take the art and bring it into the regular knife world, because his regular knives are stunning on their own without too much eye candy. You know, I mean, and then eventually what will happen is you will, as a knife maker, graduate more and slowly become a true Deshorn customer when you start ordering knives like this. So what Deshorn does is very, very successful. Yeah, I don't really see him needing to change at this point, especially not at 73 years old. So this is Omar, the Knife Shark Guy, highlighting the importance of Deshorn's work in the world of knives, and why he is the father of South African knife making, and why people like Andre Thorburn, Erucus Blumeris, John Arnold, he alongside with Owen Wood, he and Owen Wood are kind of like polar opposites, but they're both responsible for bringing the custom knife world up into the forefront for knife makers like Erucus Blumeris, like in South Africa, like Erucus Blumeris and Andre Thorburn and John Arnold, those guys that are almost in the same league as, pretty much in the same league as Deshorn. They've just taken it an extra step. So this is Omar, the Knife Shark Guy. Hoping you found this somewhat an interesting discussion on Deshorn knives. And if you guys get a chance, check out his website, deshornknives.com. You're going to see some knives that are going to blow your mind away. And if you get a chance, go on YouTube and check out his most daring piece of work, which is the double action automatic knife. Which is a knife that I will probably never ever get, because the knife's $5,000. But it is a double action automatic knife. That where it could be an automatic knife, and with the use of a credit card, could be disabled and become a manual knife. If you want to find out what that's about, go on YouTube and check it out. You'll see that video. Deshorn actually shows you how he shows you the mechanism and how it works, and it is just absolutely fascinating. So this is Omar, the Knife Shark Guy, signing off, hoping you'll find one of these true Deshorn custom art knives in your collection in the near future. Thank you so much for watching, and you guys have a wonderful evening.